I know people who have committed suicide. I know a few of them, and all of them have just kind of done it. They didn't give much warning. And the ones who did give a lot of warning, they really didn't have a whole lot of intention of killing themselves. It was more of they didn't know how else to cry for help. So they did the most drastic thing possible. They told everyone they're going to kill themselves. And they took a bunch of pills or something, or left a suicide note before doing it. So people would know, and it was like an attempted suicide, but it was more of a cry for help. Whereas the ones you see do it, it's almost like, I didn't see this coming. Like, they're gone. They're gone. So it's like you had no idea what was going on in their head. That's the ones you have to worry about, because they don't really talk about it a whole lot. And you don't know that they're thinking about those things. That's why it's so scary.
I think if you have an open mind, you can say, well, if that's how somebody really, if that's what they want to do, that's their freedom to do so, you know? I mean, but then there becomes this gray area of were they in their healthiest mind? Were they in their right mind? Is there something or someone that could have impacted a different outcome? And so these questions are what lead me to wanting to be a little more black and white about it and say, you know what, let's continue on a path to compassion, on a path to suicide prevention. Because I just at the heart of me don't feel that people are necessarily in their healthiest place when they commit suicide. I also have noticed, even just in my own personal experience, that when friends are feeling depressed, that's the time that they should be reaching out. But strangely, that's the time that they retreat the most. And so if that piece could be corrected, I think in general, and people did reach out and say, hey, SOS, 911, I'm feeling, you know, or I'm thinking thoughts that are not healthy or that are kind of dangerous, and I need you right now, and reach out. I don't think that would be such a bad thing.
I don't think it should be considered a selfish act. My opinion of it is there is a chemical imbalance, and that's why that's a decision you make, you know? Not that my chemical makeup is any better than anybody else's, because I haven't experienced that emotion. I just am lucky enough that I don't have that trigger, you know? I've got other triggers. I drink like a fish, you know, like if you put whiskey in front of me and I'm going to have 2 glasses of whiskey, I will not tell you no, you know? So that's my trigger. But it's not a selfish act, and it shouldn't be considered a selfish act. It just needs to be discussed that that's not the last resort.
I did have a situation about 2 months ago where there was a guy who I could tell was in a really dark place, and I had remembered hearing that, like on a podcast, that's the one thing that does work, is when your friend says, hey, you seem like you're in a really dark place. What's going on? And then sometimes the dam will break. Other times they'll be like, no, I'm fine, and maybe you're wrong, but to have the courage to build that bridge to that person to say what's going on. I mean, people ultimately want to relate and be understood and share their experience. That's why we seek relationships. We're much happier when we're connected. But through this modern world, we can start ignoring each other. And, you know, isolationism is a big problem, especially with people that just kind of live on a screen.
Yeah, there's definitely like a boy cry wolf thing, where you think if somebody's attempted a few times but not done it, you probably also believe they're safe. They're never going to actually, the same way that if I hear a friend say, I'm gonna finally take that guitar lesson and write those songs. Okay, we've been talking about it for 5 years, Jim. Come on, let's do it. Let's make it happen. You just start to think it's never going to happen. So the same way, if I had a friend that's like, oh, I'm depressed, I think about suicide all the time. It's like, well, it's been 5 years, hasn't happened, so now I'm just in a state of believing it's not going to happen. But you're right, it's the people that, I think that's the most shocking thing. Times you mentioned Robin Williams is probably the pinnacle of celebrity suicide, where everybody just looked at him as the happiest person ever. They don't know his history with drug problems and everything else, but just through his characters, through his joyousness in persona, in real life persona, but never once did you hear him cry for help or ask for help. So it hits people harder. But you're right. Sometimes it's like the silent people, the people not talking, might be the ones that need the most help, or you need to reach out to amongst your own friends and family and say, is everything okay? Is there something you'd like to talk about?
When Kurt Cobain shot himself, people almost looked at that as a great thing. It was kind of weird. When he killed himself, people were almost, it was like that's the way he was supposed to go. You know, that way now he's gonna live on forever as this like legend. And it's kind of strange. And I think, yeah, if social media was around back in the 90s, people probably would have reacted differently. And I think everyone's now allowed to make their opinion public, and it can go viral like that. Whether it's true or not, people will say, oh, this is why he did it, even though that isn't true. Nobody knows why Kurt Cobain killed himself. If he did kill himself, of course, there's those conspiracy theories. And I don't think we're ever going to know. But yeah, if social media was around, I don't think he would have gone down in rock and roll history as much. I think things would have changed a little bit.
The amount of depressed people that have beautiful pictures on their Facebook page, and they're traveling around the world and they're smiling and selfieing with everyone, and they're just sad and lonely at home. Like, that's a dangerous deception. Like, we already do it enough in real life by wearing designer jeans and styling our hair and shit. The fact that you can do it to such a degree, like these apps where you can make your eyes bigger, and you're like, beautiful girls are trying to make themselves look more beautiful with these Instagram filters. It's just it's a disconnect of the truth, and so the truth is very disappointing. And if the real world is the truth and the real world is disappointing, then how come half the people don't feel depressed and want to jump off a bridge? Like, it's I don't know. Almost like we got to get used to being disappointed by the real world again. The world used to be a hard place to live in, and then we tried to make it easier, and we believed that we made it easier, but it's not easier. It's a hard place to live in.
It's one thing to open up the conversation, so that's a positive. So we're not afraid to admit what we have. But from there, where do we go? From there, we need to find a solution to it. And the solution is not in choosing to be a victim of it. And that's where we're not there yet. Because right now, people will get angry, and they'll put, because I've seen it, and when I tell people they have the ability to get better, they get angry. No, I have this and I have it. I'm like, yeah, you do. You're having these experiences, but you can change those experiences. And they say, no, I can't. I said, well, then you can't. You can if you choose to validate that you can. Your consciousness will create the appropriate path to start working you to that place. That's how people get better from everything. So we need to not get so caught up in accepting the grand talk of mental illness and defining ourselves by it. Let's open up the conversation, understand that it's there. Let's not be afraid of it. Let's not be afraid if people in our family have it or our friends, or if we have it. Say, this feels like an experience I'm having. How can I change this experience? Let's move towards getting better. That's the goal.